To some, this is the fall. Not knowledge of good and evil, not disobeying God, but the time when all knowledge starts to pass under the dominion of language and God is conceived. In the second video of the series, I discussed the switch caused by global survival pressures from the ancient walk-through mind to the bicameral mind, with its two very different chambers, the God side and the human side. A hallucinated voice of wisdom emanating from the right side of the brain commands and advises the left side. Neither side has consciousness as you know it. The bicameral mind is the dominant mind configuration for 9,000 years. It's immensely successful. The end of the bicameral era sees the rise of the huge cities and civilizations your earliest archaeological digs have uncovered. But it's very hard for peoples of your area to come to an intuitive understanding of this mind configuration. In this third video, I try to destabilize your everyday mindset and give you a sense of what it's like to have a bicameral mind. First, let's focus on how the right side of the mind becomes the voice of God. At the dawn of the bicameral era, only elders, group leaders and visionaries are capable of that hallucinatory trick of hearing the deep knowledge of the world formed in their right brains as verbal commands. They speak the commands out loud and the rest of us internalize them, and gradually hearing inner admonitions becomes a more common but still highly prized ability. Because it is only by obeying the voice in our head that we can now successfully accomplish the agricultural tasks we depend on. Our elders and visionaries die, but their voices remain faintly echoing in our minds. We feel the loss of this precious source of knowledge, so we prop them up in the centre of our settlement, remove the organs that rot easily, dry them out, wrap them up. And their voices remain strong. Wisdom flows from their open mouths to our inner ears. As the centuries go by, we build shrines and altars around our talking dead, and statues with open mouths replace the actual bodies. Yes, we begin to think of them as gods. To some, this is the fall. Not knowledge of good and evil, not disobeying God, but the time when all knowledge starts to pass under the dominion of language and God is conceived. Language is a cognitive tool set specialised for the group domain, dealing in entities and their intentions. So a voice must come from an entity, even if it's dead or invisible. And an entity this wise, this all-knowing, must be superhuman. When it passes into language, people start to attribute the knowledge built by silent and collective walk-through processes in their own brains to a God. And consciousness? The right side of the brain operates outside it, while the left side of the brain obeys the voice in its head and is equally unconscious. Strange and heady stuff. If it all seems completely impossible, I do advise you to review videos 1 and 2. But you might be saying, maybe it's possible for very ancient people in tiny agricultural settlements to live with this weird mind. But how can there be bicameral cities? What can civilization without consciousness look like? We're going to jump to 3,500 BCE and look closely at one of these city kingdoms. Imagine in the middle of an immense plain, a golden city rises to the sky, carved from sandstone, shaped like a ziggurat. the city of Har and Hever. Ox carts rumble through the gates laden with grain, vegetables, ducks and geese, animal skins, rock salts, clay. Har speaks in the mind of the drovers, guiding us to the central square, telling us where to unload our goods. We hum the injunctions along with our God. Har's priests sing a welcome and go quickly about Har's work, recording the goods, sending them to storage. Har's voice emerges in the chanting of the runners as we bring grain sacks to the storehouses, skins to the leather workers, 12 straining boys hauling clay to Potter's Lane. The potter's priestess calls out Har's measure as she divides the clay, assigning to each potter the allowance that the god ordains. Soon from the potter's yard rises the murmur of our pot making. Hever's voice animates us. We sing her knowledge of strong pots, round pots, water pots, handles that stay on, lids that fit, cups that caress the drinking lip. Thus and so mould the clay, thus and so. Rhyme and reason flow through the city, through priests, artisans, children. Ants smell and taste to find their path, to understand their role in their anthills, but the people hear and sing the glorious voice of their gods. Unconscious and unquestioning is their obedience, channeling through the city, through their minds and right into their actions. Consciousness resides at the city level, made possible by the right brain's co-option of command language to organise the exploitation and sharing of world resources. In video 2, we saw this command language developed side by side with linguistic practices that mediate intentions in the group. So what happens to this aspect of language in the bicameral city? Running along in the nooks and crannies of this great consciousness, like mice in a grain store, language acts of flirting, joking, soothing, encouraging, flourish. They serve as the low-level glue of the city, holding it together with effective bonds. They serve as low-level grease for the city, managing friction. This use of language is often called the woman's voice. It invisibly handles social relationships, working as unconsciously as grooming. There is a strong and absolute taboo between mixing the language of command, God's voice, and the language of intention, woman's voice. These bicameral city kingdoms are so strong, so intricate, so complex, so perfect and so flourishing. But by 3,000 years BCE, they are headed into such catastrophe that again human beings are forced to adapt or die.